Welcome to the Let's Talk podcast. I am K3,
And I'm Razorsharp Russ.
and we're so glad that you have joined us again for episode 2. The first one was the introduction. Tonight, we're going to give you something that we feel like is so important, and we're glad tonight to come to you on another Sunday night and give you some information about what we believe is important and what is needed to be talked about in the world we live in today. Russ, we got to start it off
Yo,
with the segment. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling fine. My man said, pass me a nice cold glass of wine. Nah, it's real. I think just the mood is chill. I'm really like, I don't have to be jokey because of the moment, you know what I'm saying? But, I feel great. I think any day above ground is a good chance, you know what I'm saying, to make it great. So regardless of, what you go through, make it a great day.
Most definitely. And we're definitely trying to make it a great day. We hope that we come and make your day better
For
by
sure.
giving you this podcast or with you listening to this podcast. We hope to give you something to, spruce up your day and also to help if your day is crazy to help smooth it out. And myself, Razor Sharp Russ, RBK, and DJ Q, we definitely are glad that you're taking out time to listen to us. We don't take it lightly, for sure. As I told you, we're trying to be an impact. We're trying to be an impact into everybody's life that we come in contact with. And so I guess I need to answer the question as well. Like,
I
how am
was
I
just about
feeling?
to ask you.
I, I,
Yeah,
I
how you
felt I
feeling?
felt like you was trying to get it out, so I'm gonna go ahead and answer it before you even ask it. I'm feeling pretty good, man. Uh, life is life, man. Life is
Yeah.
life. That's just the way it is. You have your good days, you have your bad days. And one thing about it, I'm not getting up here in front like act like every day is amazing. I mean, hey, sometimes uh, life is amazing, and sometimes life is just, as they say, lifing, so to speak. But I mean,
So
my
my one of my
overall is good
homies,
though.
he asked me this. He said, on a scale of 1 to 10, what's your number?
Um, I say I'm about an 8.5.
Is
I'm
that
about
your
an eight
real
and a half.
number?
That's the number. That's the number that I feel.
Okay.
That's the number that I feel. Um,
Yeah.
I think one of the things that determines my number is knowing my greatness and then being my greatness.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I feel like knowing and being is not in the same, is not lined it up the way it should be yet. So I don't feel like I will get to a 10 until I get there.
Okay. That's
So,
good.
I mean, I'm in great spirits. I
Hmm.
mean, I'm in good spirits. Things are definitely working out. And sometimes it can get, sometimes I think with life, um, we don't feel like we're at the best place because things aren't working out the way we want it to. Uh, but I don't feel that way no more. I don't feel like just because things aren't working out, life is bad. Sometimes things not working out in life all the way around can sometimes be uh, a roadblock from an accident. So, you know, uh, hey, but overall though, I can't complain, man. I can't
Sure.
complain. Like that's just the way it is. I just cannot complain, man. So yeah, I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. So tonight, man, we're excited because we get a chance to talk about a topic, man, that we feel like is very important. And I feel like us answering the question of how are we feeling, comes from this topic.
Yeah.
Tonight we're going to deal with mental health. I believe is certainly an important topic. I believe is certainly a relevant topic,
Very.
and it's a real topic. And tonight we're not going to just um, talk to you from our perspective. We have a guest tonight by the name of Dr. Fish,
Yeah.
and we're gonna, matter of fact, we're gonna bring Dr. Fish on now and just introduce him and then go from there. Dr.
That's
Fish,
my
how you
guy.
doing?
Doing great. Good
I'm gonna
afternoon,
give him a round
gentlemen.
of applause.
Yeah, give him a round of applause tonight. Most
Yeah,
definitely.
I pressed the
So
button.
and it didn't work, but that's all right. We'll work on it. We'll work on it for the next time.
I hear it in my head.
See,
Okay.
there you go.
So his name is Dr. Matthew Fish. He said tonight we can call him Matt or Fish. So we're not taking away his credentials or the respect of who he is, but he gave us that right to do so. He is an associate professor at ECU, and he's been in this in that field for 15 years. And so we're glad tonight to have Dr. Fish on. He's going to help us to further explain or talk about mental health. So, Dr. Fish, you're on the show, so we got to ask you the question: how you feeling?
I'm feeling blessed. I'm happy to be here. And I really like the discussion that you two started off with. I think I'm stressed and blessed. Maybe that's the way to put it. Every day is a struggle, and so that's how you know you're alive, right? So I'm happy
Most
to be
definitely.
alive and happy to be here, and looking forward to having a good discussion with you all.
Well, man,
Yeah,
we definitely appreciate you for being here, and
sure,
we definitely want to bring some insight to the importance of mental health. And I was thinking today as I was riding uh, from work, and I'm starting to see these signs more and more. And it says mental health is health. Um, I think it's important to for us to all understand and know that um, you know having a healthy mental state doesn't mean that you are, if you don't have one, doesn't mean you're crazy. I mean, to actually work on it, it doesn't mean that something's wrong with you to work on trying to keep a healthy mental state. I think that we
right.
don't understand the importance of mental health within itself. So I guess the first question we can ask you, Dr. Fish, is how important is it to have a healthy mental state?
Vital. But I would begin by asking you, and everybody in general, to begin by asking themselves, what is mental health?
That's good. That's a
Uh,
good.
Um, yeah, and really think about what is mental health to you, to your community, to your family, to your friends, to your kids, and
Yeah.
then what does that look like? And so there's a couple different ways or lenses you could look at mental health, but as you're talking about how people act and how you feel, and when you wake up, if you want to get up and go, if you want to go be an entrepreneur, if you want to go talk to other people, if you want to be a
Right.
mentor, if you want to be mentored, um, how your mind and the way you view the world, the lens, I like to use a term like what kind of lens, right? We wear glasses, and maybe I put on a
Sure,
different pair of glasses and I can see the world through a different lens. And I
Right.
think how you examine mental health and what is mental health to you is going to determine how you act your day out, right? So if I think that I do, like as we're sitting here saying, we've admitted that each day comes with difficulties, challenges. Um, they could be roadblocks that stop me, right? Or I could say that they're obstacles that I need to overcome or challenges, right?
Hmm.
And even the terms we use, you go over them, you move up the ladder, so to speak, right? Um, so in order to get your body where you need to be, there's a mind-body connection. Think about when I give this example when I teach class to further explore or explain the mind-body connection. Think about when you're a kid and you bust your knee open and it's bleeding. You learn how to ride your bike or skateboard, and you're hurt, right? And what do you do?
Right.
you
What do you
cry.
do? You get a boo-boo, and
Yeah.
then who do you go to,
Your
You go to your
mama,
mother. Yeah.
right? And what do you need?
a kiss
Yeah, and what
Yeah. So some
happens?
makes it
you
all
start feeling
better.
better.
Yeah, it's all better, and you heal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You, so what happened?
I miss my mama right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Mama helps to, you know, fix that mental state of being hurt.
Yeah, and your
Sure.
mama, when you're a kid, your mom's everything, right? And
Yeah,
that's kind of the importance of having parents and good role models and mentors. Um, so yeah, I think having a good structure and really develop a properly developed brain, which is going to be starting from the time people are, develop from development as a child, whether it's who they're interacting with, having good social interactions,
right.
experiences, and becoming stronger as a result of it.
Yeah, and Dr. Fisher, you say that the pandemic kind of put people in a mental health place that we've never been in before.
I know so there's been quite a bit of literature or research. I've actually, I think we have two publications out, at least one that will be out soon, if not, around some of the mental health concerns. Anxiety, depression, they've been increasing over year by year.
Right,
The pandemic did seem to have some type of increase, significant increase, to increase the amount that we saw. And a lot of that was attributed to, well, you can't say it was caused, but it was associated with isolation. And we know from previous research when people are isolated, right, you know, it's going to interfere with how when you become isolated, you withdraw. People tend to have approach or withdrawal interactions, right? So if you hear a loud noise and you get scared, you don't think anymore about, do I want to go over there? You just run away. You act, you don't think.
wow. And I think it's important too that we bring light to this issue because it's funny how you go to the gym, you see plenty of people. You go to
Hmm.
the therapist, you see nobody. It seems as if we work on our physical, but we leave out the mental. And it's funny how when everybody starts a new year, we start out, the first thing we start saying is, uh, I'm gonna lose weight, or we start saying I'm gonna eat better, or we start saying I'm gonna do financially, I'm gonna have a financial goal that's better than the year I had before. But it's very rare that you find friends that say, this year I'm gonna start going to a therapist, or this year I'm gonna work on making my mental better. I
Hmm.
think like this world has put us in a place where we're built off of um, looking good but not feeling good.
Oh,
You
yeah.
see what I'm saying? Like I think it's more of a presentation of the outward versus a wholeness, inwardly. And so, I'll be transparent, man. I mean, for me, my mental has become more important than what it used to be. It's like you said that when you get a boo boo, you cry and you go to your mother, and your mother helps you and heals you. But then the question is, what about the person that don't have anybody to go to? Like, what
Hmm.
type of
Mm.
mental state are they in? I know, Russ, a few minutes ago, you just said, Russ, that you miss your mother. Like, I mean, we're very transparent on this. So Russ lost his mother. What was it, last year?
It'll be 2 years in September.
2 years in September. Like,
Yeah,
how
time to
how
roll.
how how did that affect your mental?
Um, I think I went to God because I couldn't handle it personally. So for me to go to what I know and how she raised me was to rely on the help of God because personally I couldn't deal with it. And so I had to trust that his plan was better than my personal desires. And that way, I feel better knowing that even if she had a glimpse of paradise and she looked back here, it can't compare. So, she's in a way better place.
Okay,
So I
now,
mean, that's like on the real, like to be honest.
all right, now I'm gonna tell you, like that answer was perfect for like a Sunday morning, me and you sitting in the office before you go out to speak. Like that was good.
Okay.
But like on a real, and I understand you said it was a real answer, but on a real, because you know, in those times, like we were still connected, and you could tell it. You may could tell a shift in your behavior, but I could tell a shift in your behavior. Like,
Hmm.
and I think sometimes like as we have discussed before the show, that we can have triggers, but we not really know what those triggers are, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and it can affect your mental more than what you think. And so, now let's ask the question again, like,
Okay.
Russ, how did and to everybody that's listening, we've already had these discussions about what we're going to talk about. Like, I'm sure Russ going to hit me with a question, maybe not tonight, but in a show, he may hit me with one tonight, and we're going to be transparent and answer them. But how did it really affect your mental? Like, we know you went to God, you went and prayed on your knees, and we believe that because we
Not
believe
really
that
on my
really
knees.
works.
I got bad
Well,
knees.
we want you went and prayed somewhere, standing up or sitting in the chair or whatever. But
Exactly.
how did that like really affect, like, because losing a parent or losing a child or losing a loved one, it can mess with your mental. Like, how did it affect your mental at a, like, on a real level?
On a real level, I have way more sunny days than I do rainy days because I know she's in a better place. So
Yeah.
it's hard. It's hard to say. For me, do you have your moments? Yes, of course you have moments. But when I say they're so far and in between, now my siblings may have different. Their story is different than mine.
Right.
My dad's story is different than mine because they all live by themselves.
Right.
Now they're all single. And I still have my family around me. I still have my wife. I still have my girls. And, that helps because I don't have a lot of idle time. I don't have a lot of quiet moments unless I'm riding a long way. But other than that, I'm really, really good.
All right.
Like I said, I really don't have too many rainy days. Yeah, sometimes it pours when it rains, but when I say the sun comes back out, it really does.
But how do you handle the rain?
Let it fall. You get an umbrella sometimes, sometimes you dance in it. It's
And I mean,
perspective.
I'm asking you this because notice what you just said too. You said you don't have a lot of idle time. You,
Correct.
you see what I'm saying? And I
Hmm.
could be wrong, but I think that sometimes, keeping yourself busy keeps you away from the moments that you could have with the rain. Not only does it rain, but it thunderstorms and it pours and it overflows, and I just wanted to see how you felt. And I asked you that question again, not to like redirect your answer, but because I want them to know that we're asking these questions as plain as day.
Yeah,
And
from
if
a
that's
genuine place.
from a genuine place, yeah, and if that's your answer, but it's not like, because some people can give that answer where it's like a surface answer, but that's why I asked you again, so that they will
But
know that question, that answer was real. So,
so that's the thing. My answer may be somewhat reworded, but it's
but it's
it's
still the same.
consistent. It's really,
Yeah.
really consistent because my life is consistent.
Yeah.
And I mean I really have, I'm good. And I mean if I break down, it might, okay, now check this out. Last year on Mother's Day, they did a song in church, and it was by the Clark sisters, and it was during that era because my mother sang. And
And she
one of
can
one
sing,
of yeah,
most
and
definitely.
one of my friends' wife had on a hat, in church, and the hat, it really, now that took me out, like during service, like it was like, oh man, like waterfalls, because the era of the music plus the hat it seemed like a trigger
Yeah.
for me. It was like something that made me really, really miss her in that moment, and it wasn't necessarily the day, like Mother's Day. It
Hmm.
was the things that symbolized my mom, which is music and fashion and hats and
Yeah.
things of that nature. And that's what took me down. But I mean, eventually, the sun came back out, so I was good. But it really did.
Yeah. And I gotta applaud you because you have a strong mental. You know what I'm saying? I mean, not everybody can handle the death of the mother like that. So I mean, I guess, you know, um, it's kind of funny to call you fish, just call you fish, but you know, we see Dr. Fish on the screen. But I ask you this: is it true that sometimes childhood memories or childhood traumas, um, or either sometimes uh, childhood greatness. Not everybody's had traumas that happened during their childhood. Does that affect your mental, or can it be long term when it comes down to your mental state?
Yeah, there's actually some really fascinating research on, believe it or not, rats and how children develop looking at play. So we know if children, I believe the cutoff age is around 3, 4, somewhere around there. So that's when you want, so they demonstrate this through rats. So rats actually giggle, and if their mothers make them laugh, but you can't hear it, it's a supersonic frequency. And this guy that got paid, this researcher that got paid big money, learned that he can make rats giggle or laugh if they rub their stomach with an eraser. And because if the rats, just like kids, are not played with, they die. There was where was it, over in, I think it was part of the USSR, where they had children. Now they were fed, they were clothed, they were put in a warehouse, they had all the basic necessities, but some of the things you're talking about right here, right? Love,
Right.
affection, and they died. Um, and so we also know when certain traumas happen, if they're not addressed, that yeah, if children aren't socialized right, if they're abused, the people who they trust are not trustworthy, then that can have long-term repercussions on their mental health. Um, but I did want to just hop on one thing real quick before I forget it.
Most
Whenever
definitely.
you were speaking, and I'll come back to this, but when you and Russ were talking about um, the passing of his mom, and one thing I actually like to ask people when they're talking about mental health and having this discussion, and you asked Russ the question twice just to make sure that we really understood that he wasn't, coming up with just a fake answer. Like, I'll ask people a couple different ways and make sure they are genuine and they are true in their response. And
Right.
I'll tell people, if you want to know who you are, or if you want to sit down and think about who you want to be, you can do it two ways. You can think about your own funeral, or you can think about the funeral of the person that's close to you, like your mom. Or like this Saturday, actually, I'm coming up on my Aunt Jean. Me and Russ see each other all the time. So he knows I went through that, and I'm coming up on my year mark. But you got to think about when you're in those times and it's a funeral, and people are going to break down emotionally, and people are at the very ends of their emotional ability, their fragility, they're broken, they're shattered, and they're torn apart, whether it's expected or unexpected. It's like a hole's been ripped out of you, right? And do you want to be that person that's broken down on the floor crying and can't get themselves together? Or do you want to be the person, like, like Russ is saying, where he's able to stand there and be, stand guard for his family, so to speak, and be a strength, and a light in the darkness, so to speak. And another level to abstract from that a bit, in counseling or mental health, in the mental health world, there's different frameworks or lenses we look at. So most people are familiar with Freud or psychodynamics. That's, the guy that did the DSM, how you got anxiety, depression, different mental disorders. Um, with the I lost the train of thought right there. Sorry, remind me where we were at.
Uh,
We were
no,
talking
no,
about the dynamics. Pardon?
no. You go ahead.
So by being at the
He's talking.
funeral, you want to be the strong person at the funeral, and
Right.
then I forgot my statement after that. Regardless, what I was getting to is ultimately you want to be the person that can take on responsibility, and can be strong. And if you think about what do I have to do in order to be that person? So
Right.
Um, what I would tell like young men if they want to like that come to Russ's shop and see him as an entrepreneur or a barber or see you K3 is what you're doing, right? And they want to do that themselves. And I'll suggest take a look at your own life. What can you change or what can you do to act or model those behaviors, even if you don't understand them, right?
Right.
And so that's what we do. That's where I was going. Thank you. I got it back now. So we have frameworks like psychodynamics or different Carl Rogers, all these different people. But what they do is people who are in mental health crises don't have a framework typically. It's usually their world has become so chaotic they can't manage it. It's a stress
Mm.
problem, right? I don't have good ways of letting it out or dealing with it. Maybe I go to the gym. That seems to be a great way, right? Because it is mind body. Um, but what we find is that people they don't have a framework. They don't know how to look at life. So if they come to counseling and they come visit me or somebody, and I give them a framework to view their life through, if that's cognitive behavioral therapy or any type of thing, now I have a framework to see my life and how to look at things differently. And if
Right.
I follow this plan, then I get better, right? So if you go to business school or barber school and you practice cutting hair, you get better hair,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if I don't know what to do with life and here's a framework that I give you to follow, you're going to be better, right? And,
Right.
and so you can look at, that from a counseling perspective, and then there's religion, spirituality type pieces as well. That are a little bit harder to discuss from a what some people would say an empirical. My comment would be what we would call empirical science has only been around about 400 or 500 years. And when you look at, we have written language about 4 or 5 thousand years, I want to say. Um, so science is relatively new in that sense, and the way that stories and the way that our ancestors and we've got to the point to where we are now, evolutionary wise, has been through stories and things that led us to the point of developing a scientific procedure through decants and those. So it's we just I kind of like to think about where we come from, where we are now, and where are we going,
Hmm.
and who do we want to be, and what do we got to do to get there. And I think
Mm-hmm.
you guys are really demonstrating that you're taking time to think about, this is where we're at, this is who we want to be, this is what we want to do, and let's talk about how we get it done. And you're acting
So
it out.
I had a quick question. Um, how does sexual activity help your mental health?
How does it help it?
Yeah, does it
Hmm.
help? Because I think it
It,
helps me.
so I'll say this. I think it depends on. There's a lot of different sexual activities, right? So I'm a recreational therapist as well, and we
Thought you
have
was
this
about to
thing we
say you were
call about
recreational.
no, but we
You
have this
were.
thing called purple recreation, which is like recreation and that would be fun or healthy, going to parks, riding your bike. Purple recreation would be sitting around drinking liquor till you fall over or trying drugs. So sexual activities could fall in that. So if you're in your
Gotcha.
framework of sexual activity may be different than if I go ask somebody who's 17 or 19 what their idea of sexual activity or what their lens is, right?
Yeah.
So if you're in a monogamous relationship or a marriage or something like that where you have trust and you are going to be with that person, you're going to have a different experience, and those sexual activities are going to lead to a bonding, like a psychophysiological biochemical connection. I cannot remember the researcher now, or maybe they're marriage therapists. They talk about this change from sexual promiscuity that's
Mm.
sometimes pushed into our younger culture, I would say, right? Um, is that there's this paradox, or there's this idea, this kind of weird yin and yang in the sense that if when people are having those experiences and they report that after they have sex that um, they don't feel connected, they feel disconnected from the person and they want to
Mm.
withdraw. right? Like they have sex and they want to leave, and it's just a transaction
So
versus
so so what if K3 has he blows a fuse by himself? Like he's just home and
now
he
when you
lets
get
one off.
into look, I'm telling you now, when you get into porn research around porn and that kind of thing,
Hmm.
it it's scary.
Very.
Like
It's like
it
a
can
gateway drug.
it worse.
So
I
that
would
no, you go ahead, Doctor Fritz. I'm
yeah,
sorry.
I think I can give you an idea. So my PhD was in addictions, and so think about it this way: you have dopamine. That's a reward in your brain, right? That's what
Right.
makes you feel good. Dopaminergic. Anyways, whenever you take drugs, you get that feel good hormone. If you take alcohol, you take it shots, beer, whatever. You drink enough, what happens?
So you feeling good or you're sick?
You feel good, but if you keep on going, you're gonna black out, right?
For
Right.
sure.
Uh, People that smoke marijuana, right? They're gonna smoke until they pass out or eat too much food, but they're gonna go to sleep,
For sure.
right? People that are doing heroin, right? They're gonna likely go to sleep, could OD if it's not well.
Nada.
Porn, okay? There's research right now that shows that there's children that are 12, I think 13 to 18, that have the same ED rates as 65 and up men. So what's happening is, from a dopamine perspective, they go on a porn site, excitement. There's endless ways. You keep going, keep going, keep going, and before you know it, you're looking at XYZ things, and that's
Did you say ED as in erectile dysfunction
erectile dysfunction.
in
So by
teenagers?
the time kids are young adults or in their early 20s, I'm not sure what the prevalence rate is right now, but they're somewhere around 65 plus men. So on the bottom of the age to the top, and if I remember correctly in the last bit I've read, I think there's, as far as the number of virgins and people having sexual relations are down. But I believe after the COVID, some of the research is saying there was an explosion, so to speak, from where people were able to get back together. But those are some of the things I would say as far as sexual health or sexual activities is just in the in is it one is it, are you talking about monogamous relationships and marriages and sexual activities, or is it um, being promiscuous or just having multiple partners, or is it
I think
just being with yourself?
I was saying as a whole, does like relieving the tension provide some type of mental wellness?
I would definitely say it's a physiological release in the sense that, yeah, the reason why for well, really the reason why I'd say it's good because the problem is if you're having issues performing or even having libido, typically that's going to be something related to sex and something related to stress in your life. Because again, going back to that mind body, whenever you're stressed out of your mind, and again, think we're sitting at computers, we got nice clothes, right? But it was only, a couple hundred years ago, not even that people didn't, like, we just learned how to fly, right? We
Pretty
just got
much.
computers and had a boom, right? So like we've advanced significantly, and with that, the yeah, I'm not sure how things are going to end up on that piece. But with the sexual health, yeah, I think when people are stressed out, they cannot perform like they should. So people tend to have issues in their marital relationships or sexual health because your body's whenever you're stressed out, and again, if you're under attack or if it's war or if you're fighting off foes, or you're having to defend your house, that's not time to reproduce.
Mm.
you,
Yeah.
you know you're under undue stress, right? So it's not time to reproduce, and that's how your body looks at it psychophysiologically. um, That's, and you want your body to be that way, right? So like if you touch your hand on a hot eye, you don't want to sit there and say, "Oh, that's really hot. I should just take it off," because by then your hand's already burned off.
Exactly.
Mm.
So it's the same thing. Your
Well,
body knows when you're under too much stress. Now's not a time for you to be reproducing. So you're not gonna get it. So that
Perform.
lets you know you need to, if you're not performing, something's going on in your larger life.
mental.
Mm.
Um, let me ask this question, Dr. Fish. We all know about the, well, I'm sure it's world news about the John Morant situation where John Morant was caught one time with showing a gun on IG, and of course the NBA cracked down on him and gave him some consequences. Then he did it again, and one of the commentators said that there was something larger than just his actions, and they tried to make it seem as if maybe it was a, you know, mental situation, as if, you know, something is wrong with him mentally. As being a therapist and a counselor, um, when a person does a repeated action, um, is that something that we will say deals with mental, or is it just uh, a way of life, or it does, it boils down to that mental health?
I'm not familiar with the situation. I've been out of the country the past week and just haven't been up on the news. As far as, can you say a little bit more about when somebody repeats? Can you give me just maybe a
I guess what I'm asking is, when a person repeats an action over and over and over again, um, do you they consider that to be a mental disorder, or is that something that maybe can be fixed through therapy or through counseling, or is that past the field of mental health?
to best answer that? I guess I would say people act out for different reasons, and
Right.
with so I would go as far to say if somebody's been told not to do something. Again, I'm not completely familiar with this situation, but you said it was related to a gun.
Yeah, it was a NBA superstar who, is well known, and he got caught with the situation the first time, and then he basically did it again, the same exact thing again, and they made it seem as if uh, it was bigger than just the action. And one of the commentators made it seem as if it was a mental situation. So, as I was asking you as a therapist, when y'all see cases like that of somebody maybe or a counselor maybe doing the same thing over and over and over again, how do you kind of deal with that? Do you deal with their mental and try to help them to see it from a bigger picture, or how do they? How will you all? And I think one of the questions that even me and Russ was talking about earlier is, you see somebody in a bad mental state, how do you approach them? Because that's what they were saying, but there was no, like you said, uh, like it was said before, he got his hand slapped, but he did it again. He got his hand slapped, but he did it again. He got his hand slapped, but he did it. So it's kind of like it becomes into a mental situation now for what they're saying. I'm just saying, like, do you agree with that, with the repeated action, or how would you approach a situation like that?
For me, I think I like to look at. I try to. So I will say I try and take a scientific mind to stuff like that. So when I come up
Right.
with a hypothesis, or I think I have an idea or this theory, um, I don't go looking for reasons to support why he has a mental health issue. I'm going to go and look for, even if I think that is what might be going on, I look for every reason to disprove it. So that way, when I
Mm.
come forward with any argument or discussion, I have enough evidence to say that this is why, because I've already proven wrong why it couldn't be anything else, right?
Right.
So Um, and I try to think about that as well when I'm working with clients. I want to give them one a genuine reaction because they may not get that because everybody around them may have to think about, that's Matt. You got to say this way and that way, right? And so
Hmm.
I want them to actually get a genuine reaction to someone, um, but also I want to question why they think the way they do and what they're doing, but I also want to understand it. If it's only one side of a story, there's two sides to every story.
Right.
Um, and that's important for us as an individual and whoever it is to as well to understand. But superstars are kind of uh, a weird group. They are. I mean, the term star, they're in the sky, and they're a superstar on top of that. We're talking about things up high in the sky and heaven and those things, and we look up the stars. And so it it's hard to understand. I think it's hard from a mental health perspective to really get a grasp of what their mental health life would be like or is like. To have 24/7 watch and scrutiny and with the blast of social media and not just rawness that you think 20 years ago NBA players wouldn't have had the connection with their fans that they do today. I mean, you can walk with your favorite movie star on social media and you think you know them, where you couldn't do that. You had to look at tabloids 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And and I'll say this, I like to think of things again kind of as an evolutionary. And if you think about how we're taking in and being able to look at all these different people and we're seeing pictures like you said, right? Like people
Hmm.
used to paint pictures on the tombs in Egypt, right, to tell the stories, and now we're looking at them through social medias, but we're just getting all the good stuff. And the research says that it's making adults more depressed after they look at it. It's a passive activity.
Wow.
So you just swipe, but you're not doing anything. But where you all are taking an active activity, let's go talk, let's go look, let's go do things, right? Those are
Hmm.
activities that actually improve people's mental health. And it's taking on responsibility, right? Being responsible for yourself and getting your own self in order before you start telling everybody else how to deal with themselves. Um,
Right.
but I will say, I think with mental health, I think one task or one area that could be extremely helpful is just empowering or giving opportunities for strength building, to develop, like to push, like as kids grow or even us as like I tell my students I never want to sit at the table with everybody who I think's equal or not better than me. Like I want to be the fool when I come to the table. I always want to have people who know more, who I can learn from around me. Because that's what life is like. I tell them, I think you're like a flower, you're growing or you're dying.
Yeah.
And I want to keep growing and learn from other people. And so I think you have to push yourself to figure out where your limits are, where your barriers are, and then you push past them. And you might think that you can't survive your mother's death or your father's death, or you can't do those things, but then you find out you can, and you find out what you're really made out of, and then you become the monster or whatever you want to call it. But you can also, to give some biblical text, you put your sword in your sheath, and but it's there, and you know how to use it, and that's really what it says is you become a warrior. Um,
Hmm.
you're not you don't you have to train like your life matters because it does. And
Hmm.
so that's how you find out what you're made out of, and that's why we love the Olympics, right? It's like they're out there doing these crazy things, pushing their bodies to the extremes, and they get a 9.8, and you're like, they can't do any better. The next person goes, to the max and barely hangs on to the edge of their control when they land it, and they get a 9.999. The crowd goes wild, and we're stuck like it's a religious experience. But really pushing ourselves, finding out what we're made of. And I think if we do that and we orient ourselves, like you're saying, in a positive manner, like
Mm-hmm.
look at what we could do. Like we don't
Yeah.
know what we could do. Nobody's ever done it. Like if you look past and it, like I love reading history. Like I love reading about all around the world and different kingdoms and different cultures and there's a lot of similarities across all those different traditional stories and stories that we have today and um, the ultimate story is learning, but one, that we're conscious that we're all going to die.
Yeah.
Mortality, and but that's okay. It's going to be a struggle, but we do have a choice in how we're going to deal with that struggle. And if we get up every day and hold our heads up and we push ourselves and we lead by example, then life's still hard, but it's much better than being in the corner isolated with nobody to talk to and nobody to support you. And we're a community, and we should exemplify that.
Yeah. How do you help somebody that, because not everybody believes in therapy or counseling, and how do you help somebody to see the importance of it that may not feel like it's important?
As far as getting them into like a counseling session,
Yeah, like how do you help somebody that may, because not everybody is up for it. Some people are opposed to it. So how do you help them to see the importance of maybe, I know one of the ways that helps mental health is just by simply venting to somebody who doesn't have um, a direct opinion. I'll put it like that. Somebody who don't know you is a neutral person. Because sometimes we're biased to the person that we know. You know,
hmm
um, I know you can share some things um, with a brother, and that brother's gonna be on your side. He's gonna definitely not, because not everybody's gonna give you that true
yeah,
that true and real, opinion. So how do you kind of help somebody to understand that it's okay to go see a therapist?
And
I,
talk to your barber.
yeah.
The
Hey, look at
barbershop is
this.
definitely a therapist. It's definitely
You
a
know,
place of therapy
yeah.
for sure.
And my wife does hair, and I tell them like you're doing hair therapy too, and so I think what you do is to get people there is you lead by example, like you're doing now. You start the discussion. Um, you be transparent, truthful, and you tell your own experiences. I'm sure we each have had very unique experiences we can share and pass on and, pay it forward. And, we've all had to talk about things in our lives to make us better and more resilient. And so I think you have to share that with people and to some degree to what your heart tells you. It's hard to put a number or a metric on that. But I think you talk to people and you have to be willing to be somewhat vulnerable in order to maybe share that. But then also at the end of the day, one thing you have to learn and realize with counseling and therapy is that a lot of people will not change until they're ready. And
Mm,
then you do what you can, you be supportive, but there's a line where enabling is equally problematic. Um, so sometimes the best thing, I mean, in relationships, sometimes the best thing you can do is end it, and that's the best thing you can do for the person.
wow,
But talk first. There's things before that.
most definitely, most definitely. Um, Razor Sharp, you got something you got a question you want to ask?
Um, a good question would be for me is how do you differentiate between medicinal help or holistic? Because some people don't want to go the medical route. They might want to be like, natural. They want to try
Yeah.
to figure out something natural.
So how would I describe the differences in them?
Or what would you suggest? What works best for them? Or
I I I think it's interesting for people to. The first thing I would say for everybody is I hope anything that you hear, like I tell my students this, I like to say things to make you think, and I want you to think. And a lot of times I want to say things that might upset you or bother you because I want you to figure out where did that be, because we think we're in control of ourselves, right? So if I tell you, and we all agree we think we're in control, but if I tell you not to think about purple elephants, you got purple elephants stuck in your head now. So how come if you're in control, how come you can't get that purple elephant out your head, right? So
Yeah,
we have thoughts or feelings. So I'm anxious or I'm depressed. So I want to question you on why do you feel anxious? Oh, it's because I haven't done this or I haven't done that. So let's figure out what can make you feel a little less anxious and what can
Mm,
we do now to orient you towards that. Well, I really am just worried about getting a job. Well, we know we can't get you a job today, but what are some baby steps that can move you towards getting a job in the future, right? And what are some things you can do now? So let's just go get you, let's, maybe it's just right now we're just going to list some places you can work, right? And then let's go get some applications the next day, right? And building up the strength to get towards it. Yeah.
that's good.
most definitely. We got about 9 minutes left, so um, I think the last question that we could ask is um, like, what is the difference between, or is there a difference between therapy and counseling?
I'll give you the way that in my head, I like to explain as far as lay terms, not to get out of the clinical way I would explain it. Counseling, I would tell somebody is going to be more of just a one-on-one, let's talk things through, or maybe even a group counseling, talk therapy. Uh, or I should say counseling. But whenever I use the term therapy, I tend to think of, or tend to think of more of like the use of psychiatrists. So in some of my dissertation research, when I was doing my doctoral work, I actually worked with psychiatrists with major depressive disorder patients, and we actually did an intervention where we used a casual video game with antidepressant medications versus individuals that were taking two medications to deal with to lower depression and anxiety. But typically, therapy, I think of treatment, medication in combination with some form of talk therapy. Whereas counseling, we're going to be usually sitting down doing some type of non pharmacological approach. For example, I have a lab or a center that I run, and we do biofeedback as a form of treatment, but we also I teach stress management courses, and we have some practices that we do in the lab and like guided imagery or autogenics or progressive muscle relaxation. And if you're just curious about those type things, I would encourage people to, I mean, you can go on YouTube and type in stress management techniques and different things like that are some ways to get kind of at least some type of experience with it or introduced.
Okay, that sounds good, man. And certainly, we do see that some situations require therapy, some situations require counseling, right?
Right, right.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. Well, that's
Some
you.
require both.
Mm, so some do. Does that? Is there a order that it goes in, or is it?
it can go a couple ways. I mean, it depends on the individual. Sometimes people, may not want to receive treatment, and they can, while it can be difficult, there can be mandatory hospitalizations or what's the term?
Involuntary commitment.
Involuntary. Thank you. So you have situations like that. Then you have people that are mental health can be an interesting uh, realm in the sense that you do have certain people that will repeat offend or not repeat offend will be repeat admitted into a mental health facility or intake or inpatient facility, and it's simply not necessarily because they have certain conditions. It may just be that they need a place to rest and a place to eat and somewhere to be taken care of. But oftentimes when you see people who do need treatment, like I started in 2008 working with military veterans with PTSD, and they were on base. For those individuals, they typically came back, they had experienced some type of military trauma, and for them, they had a hard time or they were unable to move forward in their services or their duties. Um, and from that point, their treatment would have been going through some type of seeing a psychiatrist, a counselor altogether, as well as going through physical. I think you said y'all are going to have a some type of trainer, physical trainer coming on soon. They were
Right.
doing some type of rehab programs like that. I mean, some guys were doing archery, all sorts of different things to help combat. And then you may have other people where we're lucky where we are that we have the university and a lot of mental health providers that can provide services. Got a great hospital down the street. But other facilities that are more rural, you may not have those options, and sometimes mental health symptoms can become so big that they should have been addressed earlier.
Mm.
So
Well,
unfortunately, it's not one, two, three on every person, if that makes sense.
most definitely. Yeah. Yeah, it does. Um, well, we definitely appreciate the insight you gave us on tonight. Uh, it's hard to call you fish, or just maybe Russ can do it because he knows you in
Mhm.
a more in a personal way as well. But Dr. Fish, thank you for definitely helping us tonight to understand how important mental health is, and we definitely appreciate the listeners for paying attention as well tonight and listening to us and viewing us about this topic. Don't forget to please follow us at the Instagram at less_talk_pod 23. But
Mhm.
before we leave, we got to give you our final thoughts. Razor Sharp, what's your final thought?
My final thought for this episode is you value the people in your circle. Case in point, Dr. Fish is in my circle because I was his barber since undergrad. What year was that, Matt?
2006. So yeah, what's that?
A long time.
17 years.
You see what I'm saying? And
Yep.
so because you value people in your circle, you treasure certain moments, you go through different times in history, and you develop relationship. And that's what matters. Because people can check on you. People you can do a wellness check. A lot of times it's not always the hey, how you doing? No, it's like, yo, are you okay? And for you to really, really break it down and ask the question twice like you did prior, it really lets people know where you are. Because somebody that cares about you, they tend to ask you maybe a different way. And you can tell from their heart that they're not trying to pry or they're not trying to be personal. Like they really, really want to know what's going on. Is everything
Right.
okay? Are you good? What's up?
Because sometimes
You
you're
can
not
talk.
okay.
Yeah,
Correct. I agree.
And it's okay to not be okay
that's
sometimes.
That's
right.
right. And I know that all too well. But yeah, I'm feeling great. But I think this episode was great. I think the fact that Matt came through in the clutch, that was important. And I value that and I'm appreciative of you coming through. It was a blessing. It was very informative. I think it was indirect, but it was really, really on time. It was cool. I think the way you expressed everything kind of broke it down enough for me to say, if I really, really need counseling, if I really, really need a therapist, I need to go get that. But I
That's right.
mean, I don't think I don't have that issue. But at the same time, I wouldn't mind. Like
Yeah.
it's okay to lay back on a couch. It's okay to sit at somebody's desk. It's okay to go to lunch with somebody and really just
Yeah.
talk it out
Yeah.
because it's important. It matters.
Yep.
Sounds good to me. Dr. Fish, you have any final thoughts?
Just remember, you're so much more than you can be. And, I just, again, I really appreciate you fellas having me on. It's been a pleasure. And I think y'all doing a great thing and wish you nothing but the best and look forward to seeing what you do.
Appreciate you for being on our uh, show tonight, and actually being our first guest.
Yeah.
Our first guest of many. We have some big things that we're gonna do, and is definitely going to come to pass. And I guess my final thought, I'm the last one to get a final thought, is make sure you protect your mental, man. Like at all costs, protect your peace.
Hmm.
Definitely make sure that you handle the hurts and the pains and deal with your devils and demons, so to speak. Deal with your traumas and actually deal with them. Like I think sometimes, uh, especially as being a man, we sometimes can sweep dirt under the rug. I remember one time I had a friend who did floors, and I went to one of his sites that he does floors at, and I saw him on his knees, uh, like in the corner, like scraping, with a little scraping tool. And I asked him, I said, why are you on the floor? It's so much technology. It's the little buffing machine. He said, because it's easy to put a shine over dirt. And when he said that, you know, it made sense. Like it's easy to, he's I could put so much. I think it's I can't think of the name of it. I think it's polyurethane or something that he
Hmm.
puts on the floor. And he says, I could put so much of that on top of the dirt to the point you won't see the dirt, you'll see the shine. And, I think it's important that we get into those corners, man, because, I think we've been taught and the world, teaches us to um, give this presentation without handling the dirt. And so
I
I
just
think
tucked that one in my pocket.
Very, yep. Me too.
Needed that.
I
Yeah.
think it's important to like really get into those cracks, man. Like and I guess as you mature and as you grow, you start seeing the importance of actually, handling your mental and not just handling your mental uh, for the present situation, but handling your mental for the future. And so I would definitely tell everybody, man, handle your mental state. Make sure your mental state is healthy. Make sure your mental state is in a place where you can actually be proud of it. And hey, if I need to lay on the couch, man, hey, I'm gonna go do it. And I mean, life can throw you a curveball, man, when you find yourself throwing yourself on the couch because you need to get it out. So, definitely handle those things and protect your mental and just protect your peace, man. It's so important. So that's my final thought for tonight. And we hope you enjoyed this episode. And we hope you enjoyed the Let's Talk podcast episode number 2 from myself, K3, Razorsharp Russ, RBK, DJ Q, and also Matt. We'll call him Matt. We'd like to say have a great, wonderful night.
Yes,
And
sir.
we'll look to see you not next Sunday, but the following Sunday. Have a great night. Peace.
Peace.
Later.